When you're trying to figure out what a play is about, it really helps when it simply tells you. In The Merchant of Venice, the plot pivots around an actual legal written contract wherein someone agrees to accept, in lieu of a 3,000 ducat defaulted debt, a pound of living flesh from another person. Welcome back to All Strut No Fret. I'm Dr Anna Kamaralli, and this is the second video on The Merchant of Venice, the play about buying and selling the flesh of human beings. If you haven't watched the first video, please go back and do that, because that gives us the framework that we're using to discuss this play. The first 10-minute bracket, considering what the larger questions of this play are, concluded that we should be asking ourselves as we go all the way through it, what are the questions of virtue and morality? What are the questions of value and exchange? And crucially, and this will relate to both of those things, who is them and who is us in this play? What is the question of who is one of us and therefore deserves support and protection? And who is to be othered and therefore not only excluded, but actually brutalized within this Venice, which in its own way represents Shakespeare's society and potentially our own. Let's not drift too far away from this other question of value, because I think it is to neglect something quite central and subversive about this play, to miss the fact that it is all about people buying and selling humans. When we first hear about Portia, which is before we meet her, we hear of her from Bassiano describing her to Antonio, and he does it in this order. He says she is richly left, she is fair, and she is of wondrous virtues. So let's be absolutely clear about the order of value he places those things. The sequence with the 3 treasure chests looks like a little bit of whimsical fairy tale, just setting up the initial marriage at the beginning of the play, but let's not forget the symbolism of literally having 3 boxes of metal laid out, with the choice being there about what you think your reward should be, and one of those holds the girl. Remember that I told you to keep an eye out for the way that questions of virtue are intertwined in this play with questions of value, and also for the fact that people here never stop buying and selling other people. Let's look at the point where Bassiano and Gratiano have just managed to secure marriages to Portia and Nerissa, and they're terribly pleased about this, and everyone seems absolutely delighted. And then immediately it goes on to, Bassiano says, "Our feast shall be much honoured in your marriage," and Gratiano's immediate response is, "We'll play with them, the first boy, for 1,000 ducats. So he and his master will compete to see who can first have a son on these new wives and win thereby 1,000 ducats for getting a boy." Yeah, well done, lads. That's really tasteful.
The fact that the inscription on the winning box is "Who chooses here must give and hazard all he hath" points us to something crucial about the nature of this obsession with wealth in this play, because for these people, it's not merely about purchasing, it's about gambling. Everything for these people is a bet.
When Shylock's daughter Jessica runs off to marry Lorenzo, and also as part of a package deal to convert to Christianity, she gets nothing but support from the major characters in the play. Of course, they're really open about the fact that they believe that this is saving her soul and doing what is the only thing that will get her into heaven, which seems to be on their minds a lot, which is strange given how much they are immersed in the mud of mammon. Was that overdoing it? Yeah, these people are obsessed with wealth. If we look at Jessica's behaviour close up, it's really quite sad and quite distressing. She doesn't just steal the money from her father, she spends it wantonly. And probably the most poignant line in the play is when Tubal, Shylock's friend, brings him the news that she has traded a turquoise ring for a monkey. And it becomes clear that that ring was of incredible personal importance to Shylock as being a gift from his dead wife Jessica's mother, Leah, the name she's actually named in the play, which doesn't often happen to mothers. And he says, I would not have sold it for a wilderness of monkeys. And whatever else goes on with Shylock in this play, it's hard not to have your heart broken by hearing that his daughter has been so careless of where she comes from. We're all very aware of the fact that women were literally possessions in this period. Now, that is a little oversimplifying in that that is far from being all they were. They were recognised as being capable of things that humans have, do, and are. They could speak, they could think, they could have choices. And we see all those things in the play. But at the same time, that coexists with the idea that they will always be possessions. They are owned by a father, and then the father passes ownership on to a husband. Jessica is her father's daughter, and then creates a drastic breach by choosing to become her husband's wife. When Portia and Nerissa speak about the outcome of the trial and the fact that the half of Shylock's fortune has been designated to go to, ostensibly to his daughter Jessica, the line that Portia has is, this news will be well welcome to Lorenzo, because of course her money is his money. Portia is the dutiful daughter who doesn't attempt to fight the fact that her father has possession of her fate when she complies with his instructions for her inheritance of going through the process of auditioning suitors via the 3 caskets. In the final scene of the play, we're still seeing the fact that Portia is the possession of a man, now her husband, but she has ingeniously found a way to control that possession of herself, even within these restrictive circumstances, and it all comes down to the possession of her ring, which has all the sexual connotations you would expect, but perhaps more profoundly is entirely a symbol of who has ownership of her. Now, because she was clever enough to be Balthazar, the lawyer who was pleading for Antonio in Venice just recently, it means that her husband, Bassiano, actually gives her possession of herself when he sends the ring to be given to the lawyer Balthazar. So let's recap. 3,000 ducats represents the ante to even get into the marriage game. 3,000 ducats is also what it costs to hang on to the man you love after he's moving on to a girl. The lady is richly left, and she can be found in a treasure chest. And when eventually she gives birth to her first son, that's worth 1,000 ducat bet. A turquoise ring can be traded for a monkey. A golden ring can be traded for your wife's chastity. The half of a fortune of a man who's lost his whole fortune as the cost of thinking he can behave like everybody else will be very welcome to Lorenzo, not Jessica. And the return of gilded fortune will paint over the cracks of any broken relationships. In this video, I feel I've been focused on showing you the clever things about this play, but I don't want us to remove ourselves too far from the emotional aspects of this. The way plays work is to get us emotionally invested in the experiences of humanity that we're seeing. Whichever of these characters is speaking, they are speaking with their whole self about what they are experiencing as a human being in that moment. In the third and final video in this set, we'll read aloud some slightly longer passages to see how these very cerebral ideas translate into character moments, moments of actual personal individual expression, which shows the way this play is able to keep switching those points of view to show us that no one here perhaps is entirely guilty or entirely innocent.